Hello guys, welcome back again to another tutorial. Welcome back again to my channel. My name is Dorothy. In today's video I'll be sharing with you how to cut this square neckline bustier top with a stylish puff sleeve. If this is something you're interested in, please keep on watching and do not forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and also don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Now let's get started with the video. The fabric that I'll be using for this tutorial is this beautiful Ankara print and this black lining that I'll be using to lining up the top. For the Ankara print, I have less than 1.5 yard here. I literally managed this fabric because I didn't get the puffiness that I wanted for my puff sleeve. So I will advise that you use 1.5 or 2 yards depending on your body size for this top, okay? So the next thing that I am going to do is I'm going to take this fabric off camera and I'll be cutting out the portion that I will be using to draft the front piece. I'm done cutting out the portion that I'll be needing for my front pieces, okay, and it's on fold as you can see. To know the measurements that you will use to cut out your portion for the front pieces, that is if you are cutting from a larger fabric, you will simply divide the biggest body measurement by 4, then you add your sewing allowances like 3 inches also. For this top or blouse, the biggest body measurement here is the hip. So I divided the hip measurements by 4, then I added 3 inches sewing allowance to it. That is for the sewing allowance and for the dart intake. Then I went on to measure the length of the top, and the length of the top that I am working with is 24 inches. Now I'm going to use my scissors to trim out this border line or brand line or label line, whichever. Then we'll go on to draft our pattern. The next thing that I'm going to do is to rule an horizontal line, and this horizontal line that you see me ruling is going to serve as a start line or shoulder line. So here on the start line or shoulder line, I'm going to divide my shoulder measurement by 2 and I'll mark it. Still here on the shoulder line or start line, I'll be marking my neck width measurement, and the neck width measurement I am working with is 3 inches. We will not be marking the neck depth yet because it's going to be a square neckline and we'll be doing that later. On this point that I mark my shoulder measurement, I'm going to place my measuring tape like this and I'll come down by 8 inches and I'll mark it for the armhole line. To get the armhole line measurement, you simply divide your bust circumference by 6 plus 1.5 inches, and whatever you have, that is your armhole line measurement. Now I will use my straight ruler to connect these 2 points that I have marked on the straight line. Then I will extend this line horizontally like this, and this horizontal line is going to serve as the chest line. On this armhole line, I'm going to divide the line into 2 and I'll mark the midpoint just the way you see me doing. Okay, I'll simply bend my tape rule like this, then mark the midpoint. Then on that midpoint line, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. Then here on the chest line, I'm going to divide my bust circumference measurement by 4, then I'll mark it. Now I'm going to use my curve ruler to connect these 3 points that I have marked to create the armhole curve. To slanten the shoulder, here on the armhole line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. Then I will use my ruler to connect from this point that I came down by 1 inch to this point that I mark my neck width measurement. After slanting the shoulder, the next thing that I am going to do is to mark all the vertical points. So I'll place my measuring tape on the shoulder line like this, and I'll come down by 10 inches for the bust length measurement and I mark that. Then I came down to 13.5 inches for the under bust length measurement and I marked it. Now for the waistline measurements, my waistline is 16 inches, I marked that, and the total length of the top, which is going to stop at my hip line, is 24 inches and I marked that. Now I will use my ruler to connect all these points that I have marked horizontally. So here is the chest line, here is the bust point, here is the under bust, here is the waistline, and here is the length of the top. Here on the bust point line, I'm going to divide my nipple to nipple measurements by 2 and I'll mark it here on the bust point, and I'll mark the same thing here on the under bust and also on the waistline as you can see, and I'll be marking the same thing on the length of the top, that is the hip line. Okay, after that I'm going to use my ruler to connect all those 4 points that I have marked on the straight line. Now to mark the dart, here on the waistline, I'm going to mark half an inch on both sides, just the way you see me doing. So go ahead and do the same thing, mark half an inch on both sides. Then on the bust point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch and I'll mark it. Now I'm going to use my ruler to connect this half an inch dart intake on a straight line down to the hip length, okay? And I will also connect this dart line from the waistline to meet this 1 inch that I came down by on the bust point. After marking the dart, the next thing that we'll be doing is to mark our neck depth measurement. So I'll be placing my measuring tape on the shoulder line or starting line like this, and I'll come down by 6 inches for the neck depth. Then I'm going to use my ruler to connect this point that I have marked horizontally to eliminate any form of gaping on the neckline. I'm going to extend this straight line all the way to the neckline. Then on this new line, I'm just going to mark half an inch on both sides for the dart intake, just like I did before. Then here on the bust point, I will go up by 1 inch. Okay, now I'm going to use my ruler to connect the dart just like this. So now we have successfully tightened the over bust and there won't be any gaping again. Back to the neck width measurements, we are going to increase the neck width by 2.5 inches. So here on the shoulder slant, I'm going to divide it into 2, then I'll mark the neck width. Okay, now I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect this point that I have marked on the shoulder slant like this to the neck depth. Now let's mark the remaining body measurements. So here on the armhole line, I already marked my bust measurements divided by 4 there, and I'm going to add 1 inch sewing allowance to it. Then here on the waistline, I'm going to divide my round waist measurement by 4 and I'll mark it. Then this dart that I took on the waistline here, I'm going to replace it. Then I added 1 inch sewing allowance as well. Then on the hip line right here, I'm going to divide my hip measurement by 4 and I'll mark it as well. This dart that I took, I'm going to measure it and replace it as you can see, and I'll also add 1 inch sewing allowance to it. After marking all my points, now I'm going to use my chalk to connect all these points that I have marked. Then I'll go ahead and cut this out. Feel free to add your desired sewing allowance. For me, I just wanted 1 inch sewing allowance. So watch how I am cutting this out. I first of all cut out the length of the top, then the side, then also I went on to cut the armhole and also the neckline. Okay, after that I went to cut out the dart intake, and that's basically all. So this is what I have after I was done cutting out the front pieces. So the next thing I'm going to do is to notch all these points so that when I'm sewing it, I will know how to place it properly. And we are basically done drafting the front pieces. So the next thing we are going to do is to fold another pieces of fabric that we'll be using for the back pieces. So guys, I am done cutting out the portion that I'll be using for the back pieces, and as you can see, this fabric is on fold. Right here on the center back, I left a zipper allowance of about 1 inch, as you can see. So from the start line here, I'm going to place my measuring tape like this, and I'm going to mark all the vertical points. So from the start line or shoulder line to the bust point is 10 inches, I marked that. Then from the starting line to the waistline is 16 inches, I marked that. Then from the starting line to the length of the top that I'm working with is 24 inches, and that is the remaining length that we are having here, so there's no need for me to mark it. Now I'm going to use my ruler to connect all these points that I have marked horizontally. Here on the start line or shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurements. Guys, make sure that all your measurements are taken before the zipper allowance. Then on this point, I'll mark half of my shoulder measurement. I'm going to come down there by 8 inches for the armhole line, and I'm going to connect this line horizontally, which will serve as the chest line, and I'll also connect this line on the straight line, which is going to be the armhole line. I am just basically repeating what I did for the front pattern, so go ahead and do the same thing. The next thing we are going to be doing is to mark the neck width measurement, which is 3 inches. We'll be altering this later in the video. I'm just marking this to take the shoulder slant, okay? Then on this armhole line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slant, and I mark that. After that, I'm going to use my ruler to connect this point to the neck width measurement. On the armhole line, I'm going to divide the armhole into 2 to take the midpoint, okay? After taking the midpoint, I'm going to go in by ½ an inch, and I'll mark that. Then on the chest line, I'll divide my bust circumference by 4 and I'll mark it as well. Now I'm going to use my curve ruler to connect this strip point to create the armhole curve. Here on the bust point, I'm going to divide my nipple to nipple measurements by 2 and I'll mark it, and I'll mark the same thing here on the waistline and also on the length of this top. Now I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect these 3 points together to create a straight line. On this waistline right here, I'm going to mark ½ an inch on both sides for the dart intake. Okay, so go ahead and do the same thing, mark ½ an inch on both sides. Now I'll extend this straight line to the chest line because I want the dart to stop at the chest line. Okay, after that I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect the dart like this. Now let's mark the body measurements. So here on the chest line, I'm just going to add 1 inch sewing allowance to what I have there. Then on the waistline, I'm going to divide my waist circumference by 4 and I'll mark it. Then this dart that I took, I'm going to measure it and replace it. Then I added 1 inch sewing allowance to it. Then on the length of the top, I'm going to divide my hip circumference by 4 and I'll mark it. And I will also add 1 inch sewing allowance to it. Now I'm going to use my ruler to connect all these points that I have marked together to form the body shape. Now for the neckline, I'm going to place my measuring tape like this and I'll come down by 7 inches for the neck depth measurement. I want the back neck depth to be a little bit lower than that of the front. Then after that, I'm going to use my ruler to connect this point that I have marked like this. Now for the neck width, I'm going to increase the neck width by 2.5 just like I did for the front pattern, and I'm going to mark it. Now I'm going to use my ruler to connect these 2 points that I have marked on a straight line. Now we are basically done drafting this piece. The next thing we are going to do is to cut this out. So just watch how I am cutting it. I simply went on to cut out the armhole, then the side and also the neckline. So for the dart here, I'm just going to notch it to eliminate any form of zip board on the zip. Here on the waistline, I'll go in by ½ an inch. After marking that, I'm going to use my ruler to connect this point like this. Okay, then I'll go ahead and cut this out, and we are basically done drafting the back pieces. Now the next thing that we'll be doing is to cut lining piece for each of these pieces, and I'll be doing this off camera. So guys, this is what I have after I was done cutting out the lining pieces. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take away all these lining pieces and the back pieces of the main fabric so we can work on the front piece first. Now for the front pieces, I'm going to arrange all these pieces like this, the side front, the center front. I'm just going to arrange everything properly. After that, I'm going to place the side front on the center front like this, right side facing each other, and I'll take note of where I have notched earlier. Then I'm going to use my pin to hold this all the way around. Okay, after pinning this side down, I'm going to do the same thing to the second side. I'll simply place the side front on top of the center front like this, right side facing each other. Then I'll also pin it down. Okay, and I'll be pinning this all the way around. After securing this front piece like this with my pin, I'm going to head over to the sewing machine to sew this side that I have pinned like this. For the lining pieces, I'm going to do the same thing to the lining as well. I'm just going to place the side front on the center front, right side facing each other, and I'll head over to the sewing machine to sew this thing. Now for my back pieces, I'll place each of the back pieces together with each lining, right side facing each other. Then I'll head over to the sewing machine and I'll sew the both side, the neckline and the length, leaving the armhole for turning. And I will do the same thing to the second back pieces as well. I'll place the lining on top of the main fabric, right side facing each other. After that, I'll head over to the sewing machine to sew the neckline, the both side and also the length of the top, leaving the armhole for turning. So guys, this is what I have after I was done sewing the dart in the front pieces. As you can see, now I'm going to use my scissors to notch all the same area that I have sewn, so that when I open it and iron it, it will relax properly. And after notching this, I'm going to do the same thing to the lining piece as well. I'll simply notch round the bustier area where I have sewn. Then I will take this over to the ironing table to iron the seam area properly. So go ahead and do the same thing as well. Don't forget to iron after every stitch. Then for my back pieces, I have also sewed them as well, just the way I explained earlier. I went to sew the shoulder, the neckline, the both side and also the length of the top, leaving the armhole for turning. But before I turn this over to the right side, I'm going to use my scissors to notch this corner this square corner at the neckline so that when I turn this over to the right side, it will stay perfectly. Then I went on to notch round the neckline. So now I'm going to use this armhole to turn this over to the right side, just the way you see me doing. After turning this over to the right side, I'm just going to use my scissors to push out these sharp edges on the length of the top and also on the both side. And I'm going to do the same thing to the second pieces as well. I'm going to use my scissors to notch the sharp edge at the corner here. Then I will use the armhole to turn this over to the right side, just like I did to the other pieces. Then for these sharp edges, I'm just going to use my scissors to push it out. Now I'm going to head over to the ironing table to iron these pieces out. Now for the front pieces, I've already ironed the dart area, that is the same area, and I also did the same thing to the lining piece as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place the lining piece on top of this main fabric, right side facing each other. Then I'll head over to the sewing machine to sew the neckline, the both side, and also the length of this. So guys, this is what I have after I was done sewing the neck area, the both side, and also the length of the top. So the next thing is I'm going to use my scissors to trim out this excess lining on the side. Okay, then for the neckline, I'm just going to use my scissors to notch the square side, that is this corner here, and I'm going to notch the both side. Now I'm going to use this opening on the armhole to turn this over to the right side. Then as for these sharp edges on this side, I'm just going to use my scissors to push it out. Everything will come out perfectly. Now I'm going to head over to the ironing table to iron this piece so that it stays flat and clean. So guys, this is what I have after I was done ironing these front pieces. You can see how beautiful and how neat, most importantly how neat this look. And for the back pieces, I've also ironed it as well. You can see how clean it is. Then for the dart, I decided to use my iron to fold up the dart, and this is the fold that you're seeing right now. So now I'm going to head over to the sewing machine to sew the dart up. So guys, this is what I have after I was done sewing up the dart. So the next thing that we are going to be doing is to work on the shoulder. I will simply place this back piece on top of this front piece like this, right side facing each other. Then I'll place the both shoulder together, make sure that everything is in place, everything is well aligned and arranged properly. Then I will use the lining of the back piece to cover up for the front piece, just the way you see me doing. And after doing that, you use your pin to hold it together. Okay, I hope you understand what I just did. And I'm going to do the same thing to the second side of the shoulder as well. I will simply place the front and the back pieces together, right side facing each other. Then I'll arrange the shoulder line properly. Then I'll use the lining of the back piece to cover up for that of the front piece, just the way you see me doing. After that, I will use my pin to secure it. Now I'm going to head over to the sewing machine to sew this. This is what I have after I was done sewing the shoulder. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to use my scissors to trim out this excesses right here. After that, I'm going to turn this over to the right face. You can see how this looks. You can see how seamless and how neat this shoulder is looking already. To join the bodies of this top or blouse, I will arrange the back pieces like this, right side facing each other. After that, you can take this over to the sewing machine to run a temporary stitch on the zipper allowance, or you can just go ahead to fix your zipper allowance directly. But for me, I'm just going to use my office pin to just secure this temporary. After pinning the zipper allowance, I'm just going to arrange the back pieces on the front pieces like this, right side facing each other. So here on the bust, I'll divide my round bust measurements by 2 and I'll mark it on both sides. Then on the waistline, I'm going to do the same thing as well. I'll simply divide my round waist measurements by 2 and I'll mark it on both sides. Then on the hip, I'm going to do the same thing as well. I'll simply divide my hip measurements by 2 and I'll mark it here on the hip line. Now this blouse does not have plenty allowance because I didn't give in plenty allowance to it. Okay, so now I'm going to use my chalk to connect all those points that I have marked like this, and after that I'm going to head over to the sewing table to sew the side that I have marked. But when I am sewing this, I'll be leaving 1 inch from the armhole so that we'll be able to fix our zipper. Okay, and also I'm going to be fixing the zipper at the back. So let me go and do this and bring it so that you see what we have. So guys, this is what I have after I was done joining the both side, and I've also gone ahead to fix the zipper as well. Now let me turn this over to the right side so that you see what it looks like on the right side. And this is what it looks like on the right side. You can see how beautiful and how neat this looks. Now I'm going to keep this one corner while we work on the sleeve, and don't forget that I left an opening around the armhole where I will be attaching the sleeve. So this is the fabric that I'll be using to draft the puff sleeve. I had to join this because the fabric was not enough. So now I'm going to fold this fabric into 4, just the way you see me doing, because we're going to be drafting the 2 sleeves together. So I first of all fold the fabric into 2 just like this, then I went on to fold it again into 4. The length of the sleeve that I'm working with is 9 inches. Then I added 1 inch for hemming allowance, that is 10 inches. So I marked 10 inches as the sleeve length. Now I'm going to use my ruler to connect this point horizontally. Now the width of this fold is 15 inches, though I forget to measure it for you. So if you want your puff sleeve to be really full, please, you need to do more. Make sure that your fabric is bigger and wider, depending on how full you want your puff sleeve. So now I'm just going to use my free hand to create the sleeve armhole like this, and after that I'm going on to cut this out. So this is all for the cutting of the sleeve, and as you can see, this is how wide it is. You can do more if you want your sleeve puffy, just like I said earlier. And also we have the 2 of the sleeve right here. Now I'm going to keep this aside while we work on the stylish ruffle on the sleeve cap. We are going to use this remaining fabric to create the stylish ruffle on the sleeve cap. So I'm going to place my sleeve on it like this. Then I will use my scissors to trim out the sleeve armhole on the pieces like this. Now I'm going to remove the sleeve from the spaces, then I'll fold up the spaces like this, and I'll use my chalk to give it a kind of curve here. You can actually leave this like this, but for me I just want to reduce the lines and I'll curve it up also. Now I'm going to use my scissors to cut this out. Here we have our pieces ready. So the next thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to head over to the sewing machine to hem the length of the pieces. I will just fold up the length like this, then I will stitch it, and I'll do the same thing to the second pieces as well. On the length of the sleeve, I'll be folding it by ½ an inch like this, then I'll fold it again by 1 inch, and I'll take this over to the sewing machine to sew this. This is to create channel where I'll be passing the elastic casing, and I'll do the same thing to the second pieces as well. Then on this armhole line, I'm going to run a gather stitch on the both, and I'll do the same thing to these small pieces as well. I'll be running a gather stitch at the armhole line. So guys, this is what I have after I was done creating the channel where I'll be passing the elastic casing, and I have my elastic here. To cut out the elastic band, I'll be using my round sleeve measurement to cut this out, and my round sleeve measurement is 10 inches. So I measure 10 inches on the elastic band like this, then I cut it out. Then I'm going to place this cut elastic band on another one to cut the second piece out as well. After that, I'm going to use my safety pin to hook the elastic like this. Then I'm going to pass this elastic on the channel that I created on the sleeve. After passing in the elastic casing, the next thing I did was to use my pin to hold the both edges so that it doesn't move inside. So I'm going to take these edges to the sewing machine to make a top stitch on it so that it stays in place. Then for the gathers around the armhole, I've also gone ahead to run a gather stitch on the armhole. So I'm just going to pull the thread like this to form the gathers, and I'm going to pull this all the way around until the armhole of the sleeve fit that of the top. So guys, this is what I have after I was done gathering around the armhole. I'm still going to adjust it when I'm fixing this sleeve to the top. For these pieces, I've already gone ahead to run a gather stitch around the armhole. Now I'm just going to pick one of the thread and I will start pulling to form the gathers. So this is what I have after I was done gathering these pieces. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place these pieces on top of the sleeve like this. Then I'll take it over to the sewing machine to make a top stitch around the armhole so that it stays in place and it will become one sleeve piece, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing to the second sleeve as well. So guys, this is what I have after I was done sewing the pieces on the sleeve, and the two pieces are now in one place. That is, they are now one sleeve together. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place this sleeve around the top armhole just the way you see me doing. Okay, I'm going to place this sleeve right side facing each other. Then I'm going to use my office pin to hold them together just like this. So guys, this is what I have after I was done pinning the sleeve to the top armhole. The next thing I'm going to do is to do the same thing to the second sleeve as well, and this is what I have after I was done pinning the both sleeve to the top armhole. Now I'm going to head over to the sewing machine to sew the sleeve round like this, and I will also join the both sleeve together like this. Then I will sew from the sleeve all the way to the point where I left allowance, okay, and I'll do the same thing to the second side as well. Now let me go and do this and bring it so I see what we have. So guys, this is what I have after I was done fixing the both sleeve to the top. You can see how beautiful and how neat this is. If this video is helpful, give this video a thumbs up, and if you have any question concerning this tutorial, drop your question in the comment section and I will respond to it. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do well to subscribe, turn on the post notifications so you get notified to when I drop your video. Without further ado, see you all in my next video. Bye.